For decades, Ralph Scambalori dedicated his life to protecting Guam. As chief of Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency, he helped stop illegal drugs before they reached our streets and our families. Today, Guam faces one of the greatest drug crises in history. That's why Ralphie is stepping forward once again to serve as your senator, bringing the experience, integrity, and commitment to keep our communities safe.
Today, I'm Ralph Scambalori, but please call me Ralphie. I respectfully ask for your vote, and I approve this message. Viva Guam.
As your senator, I created and helped pass public policy that prioritized our Guam economy, supported public safety, and ensured government is working for our people. I listened, I responded. In this election, I ask for a vote to continue this work for you. Vote Sean Gumatauta for Senator.
Paid for by Iloy Sean Gumatauta for Senator, William N. Regis, Treasurer.
Welcome to the show. And I'm sorry I haven't had a show in a couple of days. First of all, my name is Troy Torres. It's 9:12 a.m. on Friday, August 28, 2026. Please let me know how the volume is on your end. Welcome to our new studio. I'm not casting from my home. Eric Rosario set me up with a new soundboard. This is a temporary set that you're seeing right now. Over the past couple of days, we've been very busy with preparing for this weekend's debate, where Kandit is hosting a series of debates between the two candidates for governor, Tony Ada and Therese Terlahi. And this Sunday is the first of that series of 3 debates. And these are topic-specific debates. And the first topic is on corruption and public trust. I think the second topic is on building GMH, universal medical care, and disabilities care. And the final topic is affordable housing and the Chamorro Land Trust. We are toying with the idea of a lieutenant governor candidates debate, which would be about the drug problem and tourism, but we haven't settled on that yet. So this Sunday at 6:30 p.m., our live cast of the debate between Tony Ada and Therese Terlahi. It's an open format debate. It's like nothing that has been attempted since the election of 2010, when there was an open format debate that Guam Medical Association hosted between Carl Gutierrez and Eddie Calvo for the general election that year. That was a contentious debate. We have rules of engagement that we have sent to the candidates, and we believe that they will be professional and courteous, and that we will have a lively discussion of the issues, and they will be face-to-face here in the Kandit Studios starting at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. That's what we've been, this has been our life the past couple of days. Working starting at 4:30 in the morning, leaving the studio at 9 p.m., and it's been... we're going to get there. So there have been so many issues that have built up since then, and I decided to take the 3 top ones. The third one is going to be divided into 3 sections because it's a long one. It's about what all of the problems over at Guam Department of Education. Wait, hold on. Is the volume's okay, right? Can you guys let me know that the volume's okay? Good morning. Oh, good morning, Chief Earl Agigi. I see you there on Instagram. I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who is watching us on the simulcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Let's see, on YouTube. Good morning, Auntie Lonnie Salas. Good morning, my friend Teresa Garcia. Good morning to all of you watching this live, and those of you who will watch the replay, and welcome to our new studio. The other 2 topics that we're going to talk about, we'll start this show talking about... It's, boy, I have not seen a more ridiculous use of public funds than the GVB purchase of a steam closet from LG Electronics. I have not seen anything as ridiculous since, remember when former Senator Carmen Fernandez bought cabinets from Genghis Khan, and everybody was like, what possessed you in the fiscal climate we're in to purchase cabinets at Genghis Khan for $30,000? Remember that? That was back in 2003 that she did that. And all these years later, you would think that our elected officials would have learned from the lessons of the past that you cannot just make ridiculous purchases and expect to get away with it, that there will be no public scrutiny. GVB, in a purchase that was, according to the documents that Kandit received, was requested from GVB management. They bought a $1,800 smart steam closet. That's the name of it. It's a smart steam closet. And and according to the New York Times, it doesn't even work. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what was that other thing we're talking about? Oh, the indictment. The indictment of Christine Okarill. She's the former certifying officer, Guam Department of Parks and Recreation. But I don't want to concentrate on the indictment of Ms. Okarill as much as I want to talk about what Doug Moylan, his head of Government Crimes Division, Al Gayoso, and and one of the prosecutors in that division, Nicholas Ennis, said about further targets of this investigation, and particularly what Doug Moylan said about what he is waiting for. If he is reelected, he is waiting for Governor Lulian Guerrero to step out of office, and he said this yesterday. He believes there will be more corruption indictments once the governor leaves office. And it just, that overshadows all of the other news, in my opinion. That's the headline right there. We're going to talk about that. And then, of course, we'll talk about the education issue, and we'll get to all of this on the other side of the commercial break. Stick with us. Good morning.
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Guam Visitors Bureau. So here's the thing, right? It took some wrangling from Kandit to confirm these documents. Let's start with if you go to an agency that is following the law. There's a law that requires the posting of certain things, right, onto the website. I don't like how my hair is looking today. There's a law that requires postings of certain things onto agency websites. And among the things that are supposed to be posted are financial documents like procurement records, purchases, all these different things, right? And it's supposed to be updated by a certain time or up to a certain time. And Guam Visitors Bureau, they have their staffing patterns online. They have their contracts, their purchase requests, their requisitions. They have all these different, their budget. They have all these different documents, right? But in 2026, things kind of stop. And I am very curious what else might be found ever since the government of Guam increased the purchasing thresholds. Because one of the things that was sent to us by a source of information that is not posted on the GVB website is a document containing the requisitions, the purchase order, the attestations and statements as to why Guam Visitors Bureau had to sole source a $1,799 smart steam closet made by LG Electronics and sold by a company called Snowflake Global, which is, according to their business license, located in Tumuning. Why GVB had to sole source and why they even had to purchase a smart steam closet. According to these documents, which you're not going to be able to find online and which GVB gave us problems. Like I went there to under the Freedom of Information Act or the Sunshine Reform Act, the legislature has granted the people of Guam, well, any person, the right to inspect public records at agencies within the custody of agencies. And I went there. I went to GVB. It was I think today's Friday, right? I think it was Monday. It was either Monday or Tuesday that I went to GVB. It was Monday, and I requested to inspect this document that was sent to me. I wanted to make sure that it just seemed too good to be true. It seemed like, what if someone made up this document on AI and just wanted Kandit to go and like make a fool out of itself, right? So I went there. I wanted to see that this document was real because it shows that GVB purchased a $1,799 closet. It looks like a gun shelf. It's this we put the picture in the story that we released last night. And it can hold like 4. It has these hangers that are removable and that cause the fabrics to shake, and that's part of how the that's part of how the wrinkles come out. At least that's what it's sold as. And then it allows some drying of certain types of finer fabrics, and then there's a deodorizing and all. So GVB said that they wanted this because it's become their staff keeps having to dry clean their jackets, and so this will help so that their management and staff no longer have to dry clean their jackets. And the comments have been pretty real. And my favorite one, my favorite one comes from Irene Alcantara, who said, "Talai, why can't you iron your own clothes?" Because this is what it comes down to. GVB has been itching with a bee about the legislature not giving them enough money so that they can go and market Guam and waste more of our money not bringing tourists to this island. Everyone realizes that GVB is, if it is not the biggest failure of a public agency in Gov Guam, it's one of the biggest failures of a public agency. But it's got to be the biggest failure of an agency because it's the one that we rely on the most for our economic security. They're supposed to be driving tourism. And one of the board members yesterday was like, "Hey, we bring in $1.8 billion. We should be getting 20% of that so that we can market Guam." Like, actually, no, we shouldn't be celebrating that you were bringing in $1.8 billion because you used to bring in $3.2 billion. So let's not celebrate that you guys lost us more than $2 billion or almost $2 billion in economic activity. Matter of fact, let's fire all of you guys because all of you guys are the reasons or part of the reason that things suck on this island. We should be celebrating none of you. The legislature should be giving you no more money. You shouldn't even exist as a public agency. And on top of it all, you think that a great use of the money that the legislature was stupid enough to give you should be used for a $1,799 ironing board. Because that's what it comes down to. And according to a review by the New York Times, the thing doesn't even work. They even produced pictures and video and all that stuff of the before and after. And I'm can you imagine what was going on in the minds of whoever within GVB was like, this is a really good idea, boss. We need this steam closet because we're just kind of tired of ironing our own clothes, and it's just so expensive to dry clean our jackets. We only get paid $62,755 annually, or we only get paid $101,670 annually, and that's not enough money for us to dry clean. And I get it, like everybody else who makes only $24,000 a year has to dry clean their own clothes and out of their own expense. But we're GVB, we're the ones who are bringing in all of the money, even though the money's not coming in, and neither are the tourists, and that's why the money's not coming in. So let's just stick this bill to the people of Guam who just gave us more money because the legislature is not very bright. I have to imagine that the legislature, this has got to be the last straw for the legislature. So the Jesse Lujan, he's the senator with the oversight of GVB. He was there was a GVB board meeting yesterday, and I went there. I wasn't there for the board meeting, and Let me tell you a story. Hold on. I wasn't there for the board meeting. I was there because I wanted to inspect the record. And after some wrangling from GVB, they allowed me to finally inspect the record. So I ended up going to GVB at around the same time that there's a board meeting, and I didn't know. I was like, "Is there a board meeting that's going to be happening?" And they're like, yeah, they're preparing for the board meeting. It's just in a few minutes. It's like, oh, I'm going to stick around for this. So anyway, I inspect the record. It's the correct record and all that stuff, right? I was like, wow, I can't believe this is real. So I go into this board meeting, and and Regine Lee, I guess I don't know if she's pissed at me because she knew that I was going to expose this record, right? But she like the worst actin banielas from her and a couple of her staffers. And to be fair, some of her other staffers are very nice people, and they smiled and everything like that, right? But at one point, because she's so pissed at Jesse Lujan for calling her out on her nonsense, and even I have to imagine the board's pissed at Jesse Lujan too, because Jesse Lujan came in there and he was like, we gave you 28 point whatever million dollars last year. We gave you again the same amount of money, 28. He even got it down to the last dollar amount. It was the same exact amount. Why are you telling your vendors that you cannot be paid because the legislature cut your funding? We didn't cut your funding. And he just lays it out and he just rips into the board. The board has to stop him, right? The board chairman, Joaquin Cook, is like, hey, we have other things to talk about. Like what? What other things do you have to talk about? How the tourists aren't coming? How economic activity sucks because you guys suck, because you guys can't do your jobs, because you guys don't know how to do your jobs, because we're paying all of this money so that you guys cannot do your jobs and not bring in the tourists and not bring in the money. Like, what is it that you have to talk about that's so important that you have to interrupt the oversight chairman for your agency who's calling you out on the fact that you guys aren't doing your jobs? Because that's the most important thing to the media and to the public right now. Like, who cares about the rest of your meeting where you're going to talk about absolute nonsense about things that aren't working and then make excuses for why things are not working? And all of those excuses involve everything but holding yourselves accountable, because apparently at GVB, Judy Wampat has spawned all of her people so that none of them can take any responsibility or accountability whatsoever for their absolute failures that absolutely are affecting us, the people of Guam. And they even want us to pick up the bill for their clothes. So at one point, Regine Lee, and you have to remember, I am coincidentally there. Like, I didn't even know there was a board meeting. I just went there because they wouldn't allow me to inspect the record on Monday. So I came back yesterday. It's their fault that I was there. Like, if they had just let me inspect the record on Monday, I wouldn't have been there on Thursday. So at some point, Regine Lee is so pissed off at Jesse Lujan, right? She's like, Senator, I get it. Like, I get it. It's election year. And then she looks straight at me into our camera. You can watch it. It's on Kandit Live. It's on our Facebook thing. She says, you even brought your campaign for your 13 minutes of fame. It's really funny. I'm like, oh, girl, just wait till tonight when I release your story about how you bought an $1,800 iron and ironing board. The people of Guam have been relentless in the comments when we come back from the from the other side of the commercial break. I want to talk about the indictment and the future indictment. Stick with us. Oh, sorry, I kind of forgot that commercial just sort of drops off right there. Welcome back to the show. It's now 9:30 a.m. on Friday, August 28, 2026. My name is Troy Torres. And we're having a lively show today. We haven't had a show in a couple of days, and it's because we've been preparing for this weekend's debate and preparing the new studio for this weekend's debate. Anyway, so there's a lot of stuff to discuss. This second part, this is the real headline news, right? It's the corruption indictment. Last year, I can't remember the month, but it was early in 2025. Joan Uggen-Charfris with KOAM, she released the first of an investigative series regarding Tigwak Cemetery and how, starting from complaints from patrons of the cemetery, and there are many patrons of Tigwak Cemetery. I don't know if there are thousands of people buried there, but there's at least hundreds of people buried at Tigwak Cemetery. And of course, they all have families, or most of them have families. And families go and they visit their loved ones. And the complaints kept piling on that Tigwak Cemetery was not being maintained. The grass was 3 feet high, 4 feet high in some places. There was trash everywhere. The leaves that had fallen down from the trees, they hadn't been picked up. The graves were, there was just, it was not a dignified place. And it was certainly not something that was being maintained by the government of Guam. And so Joan Uggen-Charfris, she uncovers that, well, Parks and Rec, the people, have been paying a company to do this job that looks like hasn't been done. And so she begins an expose into the relationship between Parks and Rec and this company, Comfort Cuts, which is owned and operated by Frankie Rosalind and Charissa Tenorio. This must have been, I want to say that the first story that Joan did was shortly after the corruption indictment. So the corruption indictment occurred on, I want to say it was June 25, 2025. And then it was unsealed June 27, 2025. Like very close to my birthday. And it was very shortly after that, I believe, that Joan Uggen-Charfris released her first story. And as I was watching her story, I was like, whoa, what's going on here? So we did our own FOIA. We asked for various records, right? You know, I used to work in the government, so I kind of know what sort of stuff to ask for. One of the benefits of being in the media now and having worked in the government before, you just kind of know like what sorts of things to ask for, right? So we asked for all these different things. And we had a hunch that certain agencies were in cahoots with certain whatever, and that we would not get all of the records from all of the agencies. And so we asked different agencies who should have custody of different types of records. And we were right. The disclosures that were made, there were documents that were at DOA that weren't at GSA, documents that were at Parks and Rec that weren't at GSA or DOA, and all this, right? There were just, each of these agencies had missing records, and they were important records. But together they formed a story. And the investigative report went into a whole bunch of different things that were at the very least irregular. But of course, you know, the suspicion was illegal. There's illegal activity happening here. And one of those things was a requisition. So Parks and Rec from 2021 to 2025 had contracts and renewals and extensions of the contract with Comfort Cuts. And the amounts varied by year, and it's not because of the contract, but it was because of what actors in various places of the government at Parks and Rec, GSA, and DOA were signing off on. So, for example, I believe this was in 2023, might have been in 2024. Comfort Cuts had a contract with the government to be paid $24,750. The requisition for that time period was for double that amount, $49,500. And it was signed by the certifying officer, signed by the acting GSA chief procurement officer, signed by the acting director of the agency. To be clear, the director of the agency at the time that this stuff came out was Angel Sablan. Angel Sablan was highly cooperative, not just with the media, but with the Attorney General's office. He came in at the tail end of this conspiracy. He was the one who canceled the contract. So, just to be clear, Angel Sablan, for as far as our investigation was able to show, is a hero in this entire thing. And if it weren't for Angel Sablan, the public would have continued paying money to this to Comfort Cuts. And just remember what Comfort Cuts is, right? Owned by Charissa Tenorio and Frankie Roslin. Who are they? They are two of the PUA 7. They also are the sister and brother-in-law of Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio, respectively. They have been found from Comfort Cuts and other companies that they own to have had multiple contracts with multiple government of Guam agencies under the direct control of Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio since 2019. I mean, there's a lot here. There's a lot that's going on here, but on this Comfort Cuts thing, on this Tiguac Cemetery thing, right? One of the biggest things that came about was that requisition. And and there's other stuff in this as well, but it was one of the easiest things to latch onto, where apparently the AG's office brought in accountants just to make sure that what they were looking at was what the eyes were what their eyes were telling them. And so they moved forward. With the grand jury, they secured an indictment against the person who signed as the certifying officer. Her name is Christine Okuro. Just so you know, that requisition was signed. If it's the right requisition I'm thinking of, it was also signed allegedly by DPR acting director at the time, Warren Pelletier, and signed off by reportedly, or I believe, acting chief procurement officer at GSA, Steve Munia. And then I'm not sure on the DOA side, because the records we had didn't show signatures on the DOA side. But I have to imagine that there is some sort of a responsibility that the GSA or that the DOA person has, because that's the payment of cash. See, there's a law, right? There's a certifying officer law, and there's a accountable officer law, or I can't remember the name of it. There are these laws that the legislature put in place. I believe these are Ben Pangilinan laws. And they happen in the wake of the Gutierrez administration, where the legislature put some teeth into responsibility and accountability and sort of walled off certifying officers from political pressure, in that they made certifying officers criminally liable for wasting the people's money, for signing off on things where there was no money, or more importantly, no authority to spend money. And so we're going to see that move forward, right? But here's what the interesting thing is, because we learned, so we had the indictment by yesterday early afternoon. We had a news conference. Attorney General Doug Moylan had a news conference at 4 p.m. He talked first about an abandoned vehicle program, which my hats off to Doug Moylan for that abandoned vehicle program. We'll discuss that on another day, because there's so many junk cars on the roads. I mean, it's crazy. But the second half of the news conference, he talked about this Okuro indictment. But here's the thing. I think the AG's office said her name once or twice in that whole thing. And the reporters, I think her name was brought up once or twice, maybe. But if you watch that news conference, you know that Christine Okuro is definitely not the main target of this investigation. And the Attorney General says this. He says, there are other targets of this investigation. The investigation is ongoing. Al Gayoso, the head of Government Crimes Division, this is their corruption task force over at the AG's office. He says, there might be more indictments coming out. The head or the prosecutor, Nicholas Ennis, he's like, he doesn't want to answer certain questions because things are active. And the first question that I was asked, and I asked it, was Christine Okuro in a conspiracy with Charissa Tenorio to defraud the government of Guam? They would not answer that question, and the reason that they gave was everything is still under investigation. Matsumi Hirayama, she from KOM, she asked, what is the involvement of Charissa Tenorio and Frankie Rosin, or are they just witnesses to this? And Mr. Ennis says no comment. And so I think over the next several weeks, we're going to see a bunch of indictments in this one case. And remember, this is just one case of Comfort Cuts having contracts with the government of Guam, where there are questions of propriety. But then the AG says something else in the middle of this news conference, and it's the absolute headline of this whole thing. The headline is not Christine Okoro. The headline isn't even Charissa Tenorio or Comfort Cuts. Here's what he says. He says, we're just waiting for this governor to leave office, and if the people elect me, things are going to happen. And then I asked him, Attorney General, are you saying that there are other corruption investigations that are happening? He says, absolutely. And I asked him, are you saying that you're waiting for the governor to leave office before you indict more people? And he didn't answer the question directly, but he talked about how the governor has stood in his way and that there are certain things that the governor has done that has prevented the administration of justice. So, very interesting indeed. What are these corruption investigations? And what happens if Doug Moylan is not the Attorney General come January? Does the Government Crimes Division, would those corruption investigations continue into the new AG administration? Like there are so many questions here, and a lot is riding now on this election, according to what the AG has said. But I'm curious, what are these investigations? Who are the targets of these investigations? And do you remember, those of us who are my age or older, maybe slightly younger than me, the end of the Gutierrez administration? The Gutierrez administration ended in January 6, 2003. I remember that date because that was the inauguration of Felix Camacho. Do you remember from 2003 to 2004, the new Attorney General, Douglas Moylan, having indicted so many people from the Gutierrez administration on allegations of corruption that stemmed from audits done by then public auditor Doris Flores Brooks? And that's another thing that Doug Moylan talks about, were the audits that have come out from BJ Cruz's office. Will be very interesting. Will be very interesting indeed. Because what Doug Moylan is saying is very simple. He's going to indict people. Like he said, there's going to be a lot of indictments. Apparently there's a whole bunch of corruption investigations that are going on, and one of the things he's waiting for is for the governor to leave office. Very interesting. When we come back from the other side of the commercial break, we will go to the first part of our discussion on the scandals over at Guam Department of Education. And we'll start with, is Judy Wampat, the superintendent of education, truly remorseful for the fires she has started? And then we'll go into Dexter Fullo, and then we'll go into Chris Barnett. Stick with us. I think we are all kind of familiar with this, human nature being what it is, right? And our experiences with people in our lives, people who there are people in our lives who don't like to tell the truth. People in our lives who don't like to take responsibility. Maybe ourselves, like there's a lot that we have to learn and mature into, and or maybe we've been there, and so we recognize it, right? There is a way to tell whether someone is truly sorry for being wrong versus sorry only that they got caught. And it has everything to do with the conjunction that follows the sentence, I am sorry. If it's an I am sorry, period, or I am sorry for, or I am sorry because, or I am sorry and, normally that's a sign of remorse. If it's an I am sorry, but, that's where we have to question whether you're truly sorry for anything. Now, hold on one second, okay? This is an important call. Hi, Rai. Good morning. Yes, yes. What time would that be? Yes. I will send you my pin. Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you. Bye. That's DOE's Food and Nutrition Services. So I've been doing the experiment where they bring me the food. And I understand this is not the same thing as going to the school and eating the food right then and there, like getting the presentation and all that stuff. I don't have, I wish I had that kind of time. I will try to make that kind of time next week. It's just not possible this week. So for now, I am judging the taste of it and the portions. And I have to tell you, I haven't posted it yet, but yesterday's lunch was delicious. It was loco moco. And, but it just wasn't a lot. Like, I wish there was more. And that could be the fat boy in me talking, and maybe that's not the most nutritious thing. But one of the points I want to make about these lunches is maybe the nutrition standards come with the assumption that the kids will be eating dinner that night. And perhaps the portion that they're giving to these kids works on that assumption. I just think that it just doesn't seem like it's enough food. And I have to qualify that by saying I am not a nutrition expert, and I don't know whether the portions that they're given come with the assumption that these kids are going to eat dinner later. But if they haven't worked that assumption, and I would highly encourage DOE to work that assumption in, that this meal plus the breakfast that they get might be the only meals that these kids are getting during the days that they go to school, and understand that they might not be getting the nutrition they need on Saturday, Sunday, and holidays. Anyway, I'll try to get more into that with Food and Nutrition Services, because I don't know what the answers are. What I will tell you is that loco moco with brown rice that they had yesterday with the green beans and the mangoes was flipping delicious. I want to have that again. I don't know what today's lunch is, but they're going to drop it off. Anyway, so here's the issue that I think we all should have with Judy Wampat and her administration now saying that they're taking responsibility, and yes, this is they're being accountable, and I am sorry for whatever, is that they spent the last 3 weeks through scandal after scandal after scandal blaming everybody else but themselves. This sorry comes with a but, and the but is that this was the principals, that this was the students taking the pictures, that this is the media. It has never been that these are their decisions and that they made the wrong decisions. It's I'm sorry, but they're qualifying their sorrow, and only because they got caught, and only because the heat is up, and only because the Board of Education is due to evaluate Judy Wampat. And only now is there any consideration for collaborative leadership. Only now. And it's coming with this disdain that's coming out of, and it's seeping from the Wampat administration, their disdain that they have to go before the legislature, qualify themselves before the board, answer to the people of Guam about the mistakes that they've made, that they still are not talking about with any sincerity. And it makes me sick to my stomach. There was an oversight hearing that was held. It was a continuation of an oversight hearing that began, I believe, in July, that Senator Vince Borja has been holding over all of these different issues affecting GDOE and the Guam Education Board. And I haven't watched all of this oversight hearing, this last one, but at the very end, on the last hour of, or the last 45 minutes of the oversight hearing, Dexter Fullo, he's the principal of George Washington High School. Remember, one of the more recent scandals, Wampat scandals, is that Judy Wampat, she was forcing GW to basically kick out special education and English as a second language teachers from their classrooms in order to accommodate SIFA, a charter school. And let's set aside, the entire, like, why is the government of Guam accommodating a charter school? Like, the government, the taxpayers already are paying a per pupil stipend to these charter schools, $7,800 per pupil. Like, why are we allowing Guahan Academy Charter School to use government of Guam property, and why were we so willing to kick out special education students from GW in order to accommodate another charter school, right? So let's never mind that for a second and just stick with Judy Wampat caused this big uproar at GW. Wasn't even here for it because she was at another off-island trip that she's never fully explained. Like, why were you on another off-island trip, and why weren't you here for the opening of schools, where you told the board and everybody that everything's 100% ready? But that was a bunch of BS because, well, what has happened, right? And when she was off island, Franklin Leon Guerrero, the deputy, he was the acting superintendent at the time. He and Julie Ujoa Heath went to GW to engage with the stakeholders a minute too late, right? Because Judy Wampat had already signed an MOU. She didn't even discuss this with the principal, nothing, right? And they blamed Dexter Fullo and his assistant principals. That's what they did. They didn't take any responsibility for the chaos that they and their boss, Judy Wampat, created. So Dexter Fullo, he comes into this oversight hearing. He's like, I think there are many things that need to be clarified on the record, and I would like to clarify this. And you watch. Sometime, maybe not right now, maybe not even before Christmas, but sometime within the next year, Judy Wampat and her team, they're going to find a crafty way to get back at, to retaliate against Dexter Fullo. That guy's not safe. He's not. They'll find some crafty way, because this is what politicians do. I am telling you this right now. I have been right about Judy Wampat from the jump on this whole thing. She has not changed one iota since she was the Speaker of the legislature. There has been nothing that has changed about her behavior or her attitude. In fact, it seems like she's gotten worse. And they will absolutely retaliate against Dexter Fullo. The school community needs to rally around Dexter Fullo and protect that guy as much as they're able to, because they are absolutely going to retaliate against him. So on the other side of the commercial break, I want to bring you that testimony from Dexter Fullo that I am sure has enraged Judy Wampat and her people. Matter of fact, it enraged Franklin Leon Guerrero, who commented shortly after that. And his comments tell me everything that we need to know. They're not taking any responsibility for their own actions. So stick with us. We'll have Dexter Fullo on the other side of this short commercial break.
We delivered. Guam AutoSpot is extending our overstock sell-off with the hottest deals on island, like our 2025 GMC Canyon with $4,000 off. Or slide into a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, starting at just $24,995. September is your chance to drive big and save even bigger. Visit us today or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com or call 478-AUTO. Guam AutoSpot, where the savings never stop.
Provide this testimony. I'm here today to provide clarity about the events that led to the proposal of GW SIFA campus sharing arrangement. My purpose is not to place blame on any individual. My purpose is to provide an accurate account of what occurred explain the concerns raised by the GWHS community, and hopefully identify lessons that can improve how major decisions are made within our department. The acting superintendent has stated publicly that this situation resulted from miscommunication by the George Washington High School administration and a misunderstanding by the faculty and staff of George Washington High School. Because those statements involve the actions of my administration and school community, I believe I have a responsibility to explain what occurred based on the meetings and communications in which I participated in. I want to be clear about the scope of my testimony. I'm speaking specifically about those events surrounding the proposed movement of SIFA students to George Washington High School campus. The events I will describe are supported by emails, text messages, videos, and audio recording of meetings that were held in the GWHS administration conference rooms. My intent is to focus on events that can be verified through these records. It is also to ensure that we understand the context of the whole meeting, because context matters. I want to make clear that GWHS understood that SIFA students needed our assistance. Our concern was never simply whether we should help another group of students. Our concern was how the proposed arrangement would affect GWHS students, teachers, programs, school operations, and whether those affected by the decisions were being meaningfully included in the process. My hope is that this testimony will help clarify what happened, but I hope it does something more than that. I hope it helps us create a department where employees can respectfully raise concerns, ask difficult questions, and participate in decisions affecting the students we all serve. Here's the central point. Based on the meetings and communications in which I participated in, my understanding was that George Washington High School was being directed to assist SIFA by providing classroom space. GWHS did not independently initiate the proposal to provide these classrooms to SIFA. The acting superintendent was correct when he said we had 4 meetings. However, the number of meetings does not tell the entire story. I believe important details about what occurred during those meetings were not included in the statements that have been made in QAM and later at the GEB meetings. I would therefore like to provide some details and clarity in chronological order. The initial communication was texted to me by Dr. Joa Heath on July 10th, asking me if GW had vacancies, and I said, yeah, we have about 15 vacancies, inclusive of the classrooms that had asbestos. Then on July 14th, that's where we had our first meeting. Dr. Heath texted me and asked me to meet with DFAS, herself, and SIFA representatives to look at available classrooms. That meeting took place at approximately 2 p.m., because it was scheduled for 8, but we moved it to 2. Those present included DFAS, DAA, about 6 or 7 SIFA members, and 2 GWHS administration. At the meeting, DFAS asked GWHS to assist SIFA because SIFA was being displaced from GCC. I explained that GWHS had approximately 8 classrooms that were readily available without any disruption. I also explained that providing additional classrooms would require moving teachers. Because our vacant classrooms were scattered throughout the campus, providing a large number of rooms together would also require changes in existing programs and could result in high schools and middle school students sharing areas of the campus. We didn't want commingling. SIFA had therefore requested for 20 classrooms. SIFA representatives asked about using the A-wing because they believed that area would meet the needs of their students. We explained that A-wing housed ELA and GCC classrooms and that moving those teachers would create additional disruption. During the discussion, DFAS continued to state that the request was for approximately 20 classrooms. He recommended moving those teachers in A-wing to move to the other areas. He also described the situation as, quote, fast-moving train, and stated that more than once that an MOU needed to have been completed yesterday, quote unquote. I explained that if GWHS was required to provide enough classrooms while keeping the middle school and high school populations as separate as possible, the best option with the least disruption involved E-wing and G-wing, because those are highly available, and D-wing, which is in the middle. We explained that D-wing housed special education students and that their needs had to be considered before any movement had occurred. During that discussion, DFAS suggested transferring those students to JFK. He later suggested that the teachers could just follow the students to JFK. We raised concerns, that was a big red flag, and that the proposal would cause us more disruption and possible lawsuits. Because the SIFA representatives were already there, we decided, let's go take a tour on the campus, and we managed to show them the areas of G-wing, E-wing, and D-wing. After touring the different wings and inspecting classrooms, SIFA, again, said they needed 20 classrooms. Because GWHS could not easily provide their number without significant displacement, the possibility of looking outside the box came up, and we looked at areas including the PBS buildings. So we took a tour and walked to the PBS area. In there was SIFA, DFAS, DAA, and GWHS administration. And we walked around PBS and see if it was suitable for SIFA to place. At the conclusion of the tour, we returned to my office. Again, DFAS stated that the matter needed to move forward, regardless of whether individuals involved in the process was on leave, and he emphasized that the matter needed to be completed quickly, and that the MOU and contract needed to be finalized as soon as possible. Based on those statements, the request for approximately 20 classrooms and the discussions about moving existing students and teachers, I understood that GWHS was expected to assist in accommodating SIFA. That understanding is important because it guided the actions I took afterwards as a principal. Immediately after the meeting, I informed our teachers, including the special education teachers, about the request to provide classroom space for SIFA. I explained that based on the discussion that had taken place, using portions of the three wings appeared to be the most feasible way to provide the request space while minimizing interaction between high school and middle school populations. Our department chairs and special education staff then began discussing the possible effects of the proposed move and ways to reduce the disruption of our students. On July 15, 2026, I texted Dr. Heath regarding several needs identified by our special education department. These included requests to address asbestos rooms for safety and potentially housing displaced Department of Education students and special ed students and teachers. We requested the following: A110, B200, C206, and C110 be cleared for use. We also requested that C110 and C111 be partitioned so they can be accompanied by special education teachers. In addition, we requested that G109 and G110 be tiled so they can be used potentially for SIFA students. These requests were not made because we had independently decided to move our teachers. They were made because we were trying to determine how to carry out the proposed arrangements while reducing disruption to our students and our employees. Our special education teachers, understandably so, continued asking about their room assignments. We could not provide completed answers because several of the requested improvements had not yet been completed. Despite follow-up communications regarding their status, only one partitioned classroom had begun work by August 5th, when teachers were scheduled to report to work. At the time, we reflected in my records, we did not know the remaining of the request of the other classrooms that needed to be completed so movement can occur. This added to the concern and uncertainty experienced by our staff and our teachers. On July 16th, I sent an email to Deputy Kirigua and explained that GWHS could not meet the request for 20 classrooms. It was impossible without compromising programs serving our students. I provided a list of concerns and needs that would have to be addressed if the plan were to move forward. I also requested a meeting with the superintendent and upper management. I wanted to understand the reasons for the proposed arrangements, how it would benefit GWHS and GDOE, and why GWHS was being asked to make these changes and sacrifices. I also asked whether GCC could assist by accommodating some of the classrooms that we didn't have because we couldn't accommodate them. Deputy Kirigua asked whether she could share my concerns, my email concerns, with the leadership team. I asked her to, please do it because we need to move forward. During this period, I remained in communication with our special education department chair as their department continued identifying concerns. I informed the department that GDOE had agreed to make improvements in C-Wing so that our special education programs could remain together. That was their main ask, if they can be together. Although the department continued to have concerns about the overall move, this provided a possible compromise because keeping the students together would help maintain their services. A few days later, Deputy Kirigua called and informed me that Superintendent Wanpat would accept the classroom currently identified as 16 and not 20, which took a big load off me because 20 was almost impossible to meet. The second meeting, though, took place before I was told that there were 16 classrooms. It was on July 17th, and again, the GWHS administration met with DFAS, Deputy Heath, and SIFA representatives. During this meeting, a campus was requested so additional space could be considered in an effort to meet SIFA's needs. We were asked whether office spaces could be converted into classrooms. We explained that all but one of the assistant principal's offices were located within the main office. By design, we had to separate the student support office because that's where students who get into fights, students who are belligerent, students who may be high in drugs, or who have issues need to be separated from the main office so they can have their privacy and they can calm down. So, we ask that remains. So the group continued then discussing how can we meet the 20 classrooms that can help SIFA. One proposal involved repairing the old warehouse near Ewing, which Cortec was using as storage for their refurbishment project. Cortec was contacted immediately to look at the possible cost of renovating that space for SIFA. Another idea involved renting 3 AC containers to meet the needs for SIFA and have the 20 classrooms. This was before I got the phone call that we couldn't do 16. There was also discussion about having Cortec leave its existing area on GWHS so that the back portion of the campus could potentially be used for SIFA student drop-off and pickup. After reviewing these options and the conditions of available spaces, additional possibilities were discussed, including moving the freshman academy from the F-wing. We tried not to do that because the freshman academy is extremely, they need to be together, they're separated. It's one of the strong programs of GW. Again, during this meeting, DFAS described the situation as fast-moving train and emphasized that it needed to be completed quickly. I provided these details because they explain why I understood the direction from GDOE leadership to be that GWHS was expected to assist SIFA. The discussions were not limited to identifying classrooms that GWHS could voluntarily spare. They included the possible movement of teachers and students, changes involving special education programs, renovations of existing facilities, use of temporary facilities, and changes to campus operations. This was the context in which GW administration was operating. I believe that this part is important. As a principal, I understand that I am responsible for carrying out lawful directives from my supervisors and my superintendent. At the same time, I have a responsibility to advocate for the students and employees entrusted to my care and to communicate how decisions may affect our students, teachers, programs, and school operations. These responsibilities are not in conflict. A principal should be able to follow directives while also raising legitimate concerns about how that directive will affect students. At GWHS, we encourage open and sometimes difficult conversations when decisions affect our students. We don't always agree. But disagreements, when expressed respectfully and professionally, can help us make better decisions. That is the part of maintaining a collaborative school culture. During the first two meetings, my concern was that the discussions focused primarily on finding enough space to accommodate SIFA. From my perspective, there had not yet been a meaningful discussion with GWHS stakeholders about how the proposed arrangement would affect our students, teachers, programs, and school operations. That was a concern I continue to raise. Third meeting occurred August 3rd, 2026. The third meeting took place on August 3rd at the superintendent's office. Those present included Superintendent Wanpat, DFAS, Dr. Joe Heath, Deputy Kirigua, Senator Vince Borja, and a representative from the office and GWHS administration. Approximately 2 hours before this meeting, SIFA and Superintendent Wanpat had signed an MOU. Until that meeting, the GWHS administration and GWHS community had not seen the MOU or even a draft of it. During the meeting, DFAS stated that GW had offered the spaces. If you recall, I immediately disagreed with that statement. I explained that I had been responding to directives and requests from GDOE leadership. I stated that I had not independently offered the classroom to SIFA. That distinction is important. There is a difference between a school voluntarily offering classrooms and school administration identifying classrooms because it understands that it has been directed to accommodate another school. My actions throughout this process were based on the later understanding. The meetings concluded with acting superintendent directing DFAS and DAA, or the superintendent, directing DFAS and DAA to meet with GWHS stakeholders the following morning. The fourth meeting, August 5th, 2026. The fourth meeting was a stakeholders meeting held on August 5th at our library. The meeting began with a review of the events and timelines. GWHS stakeholders were then given an opportunity to speak directly with the acting superintendent and discuss their concerns. Stakeholders raised questions about why GWHS students, teachers, and programs were being asked to make these changes to accommodate SIFA. They also raised concerns about the process, including what they viewed as a lack of transparency and collaboration. One of the central questions was why GWHS was being asked to make these changes and how the arrangement would affect the students and programs of George Washington High School. These were reasonable questions. They were also questions that our school community believed should have been discussed earlier in the process. Following these events, statements were made publicly that placed responsibility for the situations that occurred on GWHS administration. During a KUAM interview, DFAS stated that the problem resulted from an error or a miscommunication involving the principal and assistant principal. At the Guam Education Board meeting, DFAS again stated that the issue occurred at the school level. This was stated also by Superintendent Wanpat at a later GEB meeting. I respectfully disagree with this characterization. I asked the entire sequence of events be considered. I was asked how many classrooms were available. I was asked to meet with GDOE leadership and SIFA reps to inspect classrooms. We were told that approximately 20 classrooms were needed. When those classrooms were not available, discussions included moving teachers, moving special education students and their teachers, renovating a warehouse, using temporary air conditioning containers, changing campus drop-off and pickup arrangements, and relocating the freshman academy. Throughout this process, I communicated with our teachers and the department leaders about the proposed changes. I raised concerns with GDOE leadership about the impact on GWHS students. I requested assistance to reduce disruption to our special education students. I requested a meeting with upper management to discuss the reasons for the proposed arrangements and its impact to GWHS. And when it was stated that GWHS had offered the classrooms, I immediately stated that that was not my understanding of what had occurred. For these reasons, I do not believe it is accurate to characterize the situation simply as a miscommunication by the administration of GW or a misunderstanding by the GW teachers. The GWHS community understood that SIFA needed assistance. Sorry, I'm kind of dry mouth. Can I get a water? The concern was not simply whether we should help another school. We're willing to help. The concern was how the proposed arrangement would affect GWHS students, teachers, programs, and school operations, why GWHS was being asked to make these changes, and whether the people affected by those changes had been meaningfully included in the decision-making process. Those were the questions we were asking. Thank you. Those are the questions that I still believe deserve answers, but I do not want my testimony to end here. I do not want this testimony to end simply with a disagreement over who was responsible for what happened. If that is all we accomplish, then we have missed an opportunity. I believe we should use this experience to improve how decisions are made within GDOE. GWHS is a mission and vision-driven school. Our faculty stakeholder meetings, we regularly return to our mission and vision because they remind us what our decisions must ultimately serve. That's our students. We welcome difficult conversations and different point of views. We do not always agree with one another, but we believe that people affected by a decision should have an opportunity to raise concerns, ask questions, and offer solutions. I believe we should expect the same approach throughout all of GDOE. Our state strategic plan identifies collaborative leadership as an important objective. It is the first strategy in our state strategic plan. To me, collaborative leadership does not mean that we all must agree. It means that the people who will be affected by a major decision receive meaningful information and have a meaningful opportunity to provide input before that decision becomes final. That is where I believe this process fell short. The issue was not the number of meetings. The issue was when meaningful stakeholder involvement occurred and what those meetings were intended to accomplish. During the first meeting, the discussion focused primarily on how GWHS could provide enough space to accommodate SIFA. We discussed classrooms. We discussed moving teachers. We discussed moving students. We discussed special education spaces. We discussed temporary facilities and renovations. We discussed changes to campus operations. What was missing was an equally serious discussion about the impact those decisions could have had on GWHS students, employees, programs, and families. By the August 3rd meeting, an MOU had already been signed approximately 2 hours before we met. Until that meeting, the GWHS administration and our school community had not seen the MOU or draft of it. That experience raises a larger question that goes beyond GWHS and SIFA. How should major decisions that affect school communities be made? I believe this experience gives DOE and Guam Education Board an opportunity to establish a better process. I respectfully ask the department and the board to consider several principles when major decisions will significantly affect a school community. Now, principles, LE, not A, not principles. First, communicate early. School leaders and affected stakeholders should receive accurate information before major decisions are finalized. Communication after a decision has already been made is not the same as participation in the decision-making process. Second, listen before deciding. The people closest to our students, including principals, teachers, support staff, parents, and other stakeholders, often understand impacts that may not be visible at the central office level. Give them an opportunity to speak. It does not weaken the leadership. It leads to better decisions. Third, explain the rationale. There will be more times when difficult decisions must be made. Not everyone will agree with those decisions, but employees and stakeholders should understand why a major decision is necessary, what alternatives were considered, and how the final decisions serve students of GDOE. Fourth, clearly document responsibilities and expectations. When expectations are given, there should be clarity about who made the decision, who is responsible for carrying it out, what resources will be provided, and what outcomes are expected. That clarity protects everyone. It also reduces the possibility that responsibility will later be disputed. Finally, we should not confuse respectful disagreement with insubordination. Employees should be able to raise concerns about the impact of a decision without fearing that those decisions will be viewed as refusing to follow directives. As a principal, I understand that there will be times when I disagree with a decision and must still carry it out. Leadership does not require agreement on every issue, but good leadership should allow people to ask difficult questions, especially when those concerns raise the welfare of our students. I am not asking this body simply to determine who was right and wrong. I am asking us to examine the process. Good communication, has it occurred earlier? Could affected stakeholders have been involved sooner? Could the rationale have been explained more clearly? Could responsibilities have been documented more clearly? Could concerns have been heard before major decisions were finalized? And most importantly, what can we change so that the next school community facing a major decision has a better experience than what we had at GW? Those are questions worth asking. Accountability is important, but accountability should do so more than identifying what went wrong. It should help us improve what happens next. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here because I believe this experience can lead us to better changes. Our work in education is difficult and meaningful. Every day, we ask our students to listen, communicate, collaborate, and learn from mistakes and improve. As educational leaders, we should be willing to expect the same from ourselves. We have an opportunity to improve our island through education. That responsibility belongs to all of us, the superintendent, the board, the school administrators, teachers, support staff, families, students, and the community. We will not always agree, but we can commit to listening to one another. We can communicate honestly. We can make decisions transparently. We can give the people affected by those decisions a meaningful voice. And after difficult situations, we can ask not only who was responsible, but also what can we learn and what can we do better. My hope is that what happened at George Washington does not simply become another controversy that we eventually move past. My hope is that it becomes an opportunity for change. If this experience results in cleaner communication, greater transparency, stronger collaboration, and a better process for involving our school communities, then something positive can come from this difficult situation. Let us remain guided by our mission and vision. Let us keep our decisions centered on students. And let us work together to make GDOE better for our next generation of students and educators who will follow us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sidusmasi, Principal Fullo, for clearing the record, and the chair has informed me that we're under time constraints and the hearing will have to be wrapped in a few minutes, so I did want to offer the opportunity. And again, that's unfortunate. There's a lot of concerns with GDOE that we need to address, I think, today, but did you have any response to this testimony from Principal Fullo? And also, I'd like to just say on the record, no retaliation, por favor.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Yes, I'd like to say a few comments. First and foremost, I'm a leader. I'm a leader of this management team. I'm a former retired commanding officer. I worked in the Pentagon. I understand leadership, and I was a leader in a leadership position, and an issue came forward. GCC called and said they're no longer going to be able to accommodate SIFA. So we have a fellow educational school that is in dire need with a short amount of time. He talks about the meeting on July 10th. We're talking about less than a month before schools to open. SIFA children are children of the Guam community. They deserve a learning environment no different than any of the other schools. So the question became, GCC can no longer accommodate. Can you help us? The call went out to GW High School, which is close to where the parents and the students were going to school, said, do you have vacant classrooms? Do you have any vacant classrooms? The answer is yes. So, okay, I will not apologize for trying to maximize the usage of our facilities. I will not apologize for the fact that we could accommodate another set of students with minimal disruption in our facilities. So the question became, yes, we have vacant classrooms. In that first meeting, the principal said we can give up 15 classrooms. The ask was for more, but the offer was for 15 classrooms. So there's a possibility here. There's a possibility. We did a site visit. We looked around. We wanted to see what was safe. What could we do to prevent commingling as much as possible? We understood and took all these into account. And, oh, by the way, did I forget to say SIFA was there, and the administration of the administrators of the school were there. The school was involved from the very beginning. It doesn't sit well with me when you say that this decision was shoved down our throat or we were not involved in the discussion. But however, we had the meeting, we looked around, some suggestions were made about how could we minimize commingling, and another meeting came to pass. In that meeting, the leadership of the school said, we talked to the special education personnel at GW, and they said it was doable. It was okay to move them. That is the information that was conveyed to me.
Deputy Leonguerrero, I just kind of have to stop you there because I spoke with the special education personnel at George Washington High School, and I think we're kind of getting away from the point.
Oh, no, but just a second, sir. You just said that, right? And you were in the same meeting that I was in when the department chair of the GW High School Special Ed stood up and communicated that, yes, he communicated to the principal that it was okay, he was in favor of moving the students. He said that at a meeting that you were there. And then he made a mistake, he's sorry. But he did communicate that. So the information going out to everybody that special ed wasn't requested, their information wasn't requested, is false. You were there in that meeting where he stood up and said, I did say that, correct?
Deputy Leonguerrero,
did he say that?
I think that I'm asking the question.
Thank you.
And I think I want to ask, do you want to apologize for kicking out the special education students to create vacant spaces to accommodate the charter school? I think that's really the core issue here. And Mr. Chair, I don't know how much time we have left, but yeah, and I think when we in the legislature discussed GDOE's ability to rent vacant spaces, I don't think any of us thought that it meant you're going to kick out the special education and stick them in the laundry closet, which was exactly what was going to happen had this whole issue not been stopped. So, si Diyos Masi, Mr. Chair, are you going to recess? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I will. Because you said laundry closet, I just want to tell you that the principal is the one who selected the classrooms that the special education students would be moved to. The principal made that decision, and he asked for a checklist of things to be correct.
Clear
okay.
In the testimony
when the facts
principal,
come out, I'm sorry you're not comfortable with that. Thank you.
No. Those aren't the facts. I think the facts were relayed by the principal that he was executing a decision from his supervisors. And we see the theme here in this hearing. The leadership of GDOE continues to throw the principals under the bus. They're blaming the students for taking pictures at Tizan High School. There's just a lot of blame to go around, and I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I did want to, because Deputy Superintendent, ma'am, you had said that you weren't aware of the conditions at Tizan High School prior to the start of the school year. Is that correct?
Can you explain? I didn't hear.
When were you aware of the conditions that existed at Tizan High School that would have warranted shutdown by public health?
We did not see that coming. It was because, like I said earlier, that we did the reinspection. Both principals are aware of the inspection checklist, and we did walk through the campus.
When was that, ma'am?
I don't recall. It's towards the summer.
I'd just like to draw your attention to this document. This is the Guam Department of Education document. It's dated January 12th. And this document is a GDOE school building inspection report of Tizan High School. Now, in this document, all of the major demerit violations are listed here, to include the obnoxious odor of raw sewage from the restrooms, to include the downed ACs, to include the lighting demerits, to include all of the issues with the restrooms, to include the issue with the tiles.
So that you said
January? As you sit here and tell us that you guys were totally blindsided about the conditions at Tizan High School, this document says that GDOE knew about these conditions months before they announced the merger with Tizan and Sanchez High School. So if you knew about these conditions with major public health demerits and violations in January, what effort, if any, was made to correct these deficiencies?
January, yes. So if that's January, so that is just for the Tizan High School portion, not the Simon Sanchez.
Well, these are the violations that are listed in the public health inspection
and those
report.
Violations, they allow us to address them, like in January. And their reinspection wasn't set for
until
those
August.
Things until August 4th.
Yes, and
we had to address them.
The inspection was the result of complaints from parents and students, and students who shared with the media and everybody the conditions at the school. So again, I just want to ask if you knew about these conditions at Tizan High School since January. What effort, if any, was done to remedy the violations? Was there any communication with the Cortec responsible for the maintenance of the facility? Because had we addressed these issues since January, maybe we wouldn't see this shutdown of Tizan and Sanchez.
Most of the demerits that resulted for the closure is from the Simon Sanchez.
Ma'am, they're the same demerits. The sewage is connected on both sides. These are the same demerits that were cited in the public health inspection report. So again, what, if anything, did GDOE do to correct these deficiencies? Because these are the same deficiencies that shut down Tizan High School for both the Tizan Titans and the Simon Sanchez Sharks.
It's just one inspection for both one campus. So, like I said, that
just respectfully, ma'am, if you knew about it since January, you can't come into this legislature and tell us that you were blindsided by it. If you announced this merger with Tizan and Sanchez, the most disruptive merger, moving the Sharks further away from GIGO, and you knew that there were these impediments Why was nothing done to correct these deficiencies?
Those
Why didn't you
were-
get on Cortec to come in and correct these deficiencies?
Senator, that paper that you're holding is an inspection for
Superintendent, I
Legion
know
High
what paper
School.
I'm holding. I know how to read. These are the
No,
same violations cited in the
I
public health
understand
report.
that, but what you need to do is we need to separate this out. That
It's one
form-
permit, one
wait,
school,
that-
Superintendent.
Allow me to explain.
One permit, one school.
You've done already that you're.
Please explain why
Your
nothing was
speech.
done.
No, I'm saying that that was January, yes, but that was Tejan High School because the Sanchez site was closed off.
Was
They weren't
condemned, yes,
using it.
because you stuck the
They
sharks
were
into a
only
condemned section of the
They
school.
were only using the front for the Success Academy, but all of the other buildings weren't being used. That now was worked on to prepare to allow then this, Simon Sanchez to move in there. When they came in now, they looked at both campus, and a lot of the citations, yes, were on the site now of Simon Sanchez. So it's not, so they're, and you're right, if they did it separately, we would have gotten maybe one for just Sanchez, and then that would have remained for Tejan. But that's not the case now. That's the reason why we had asked if at the time whether there could be two separate permits. But the holder of the permit is Tejan High School. And that's what we've been trying to communicate with public health. And now they're saying that we have to go through the pre-application, submit all the documents so that we can bifurcate then both schools now and have their own separate, permits. And we would definitely do that.
I know the chair is about to recess the hearing, but I think the fact remains that these major demerit violations were discovered by GDOE way back in January, and according to your testimony here, little to nothing was done until prior to the start of the school year. I take responsibility as a member of the legislature. I'm not sure I'm hearing that from your side. You continue to throw everybody under the bus. But I think last question before you recess, you said in the board meeting that you're pushing for schools to open by Monday, August 31st.
First of all,
that's
Senator,
relevant to public
you
health
must have stepped out,
and the inspection
but
being
the
passed.
question was asked of me about who's to blame, who's to take blame, that there's a lot going around, and whether you were here or not.
I was here.
And the senator is that I apologize to everyone, students, teachers, parents, all other stakeholders, because I am the superintendent and I will take full responsibility of that. So please don't say that I didn't apologize when I did publicly.
I'm not really looking for an apology, Superintendent.
But you said that you
We've been
apologized
tracking
and you haven't heard
that you
whether I did.
consistently blame the principals. You blame the principals for redistricting. You blame the principals for Tejan High School. You blame the principals for SIFA and GW.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. We're going to have to, because of the feed, and we've kind of exceeded the bandwidth for the YouTube, we're going to go ahead and recess this public hearing until a later time. We're going to have to work out the dates, but we'll put out the public notice in regards to that. But apologies for rushing to recess this because of the... but right now, the Committee on Education is in recess. We will put out a public notice for the...
This stuff's hitting the spot.
Every trip to the grocery store, I feel it. Every bill that comes in, I feel it. The cost of living on Guam keeps going up, and our families need someone who actually fights for us. Senator Sean Gumatautau gets it. He's working to lower costs, bring better paying jobs to our island, and make health care more affordable for our families. Re-elect Senator Sean Gumatautau for our families, for our future, for Guam.
Paid for by William Sean Gumatautau for Senator, William N. Regis, Treasurer.